Since 2015, Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
Stillman and Company 440 Sports here, presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. You know I love Hiller. They take great care of my home. They can do the exact same for you. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Again, the presenting sponsor of Stillman and Company. Loaded show today. We will have our Thursday night sermon at the end of today's show because, well, I hate to be honest with everybody, but tomorrow is Yom Kippur. And I am not working tomorrow on Yom Kippur. It is the holiest Jewish holiday of the year. In fact, my grandfather owned a business, and my grandfather would shut the business down on Yom Kippur to the point that he's been gone for 30 years, and they still at that business take off Yom Kippur. So I will not be working tomorrow, so we'll get our Thursday night sermon in there, and I expect that we will have a program on Saturday after the Vanderbilt Alabama game. Depends on how the game goes exactly, in terms of, is there like a game to wait on or whatever, and we'll get into all of that as well. We got a lot to get into today, including some reporting I think Kaharski was doing about Brian Callahan's future, and apparently PK and the Titans have really gotten into it. I'll say a lot of shit about the Titans, but PK took it to a whole nother level today, so we'll get to that. But I want to start on Cam Ward, if I may. And if I may, start on the situation the Titans find themselves in with Cam Ward and what this means for Cam Ward's future. So I hope it works out for Cam Ward. I do. Because I am a Titan fan through and through. I love this team. I hate the fact that this team is freaking awful. I hate the fact that as a season ticket holder, I have not been to a game since the Packer game last season, and maybe I'll go to the Vrabel game in a couple of weeks, but as of right now, I kind of doubt it. It's too much of a hassle to go to the game to watch that shit team play, and I hate that. Again, I'm a big fan. And the easiest way to get out of this, as we all know, is to have a franchise quarterback. And everybody wants the number one pick in the draft to become the franchise quarterback. That's why quarterbacks go number one in the draft, because it's so hard to get Joe Burrow. And so the Titans drafted Cam Ward with the number one pick with the hopes that he was going to be a franchise quarterback. As of right now, Cam Ward has a 23.4 QBR, which is 33rd in the NFL. As he would say, if you ask him, he's ass right now. And I said on Sunday, and I said on Monday, Cam Ward was bad against the Texans. And as soon as I open my mouth and I say, man, Cam was bad, I get the boo-hoo excuse cue. Up, there they are. He's got him. Here they come. Just yelling and screaming from the fans and the YouTube chat and everywhere else, Twitter, like there's no tomorrow. They're yelling, what do you expect, Jared? He's a rookie. Be fair, Jared. Well, I hate to say this, but what we're getting from Cam, when you say, what did you expect, Jared? What you're seeing right now, 0-4, terrible statistics. That is what I expected the Titans to get from Cam Ward. Because as I said, all offseason long, I said, hey, if you draft this guy and you don't have a tight end, it's not going to work. If you draft this guy and this guy can't coach, it's not going to work. And everybody just said, but Jared, he's a winner. Jared, he's a dog. Jared, he's the man. Jared, he's Mahomes. I said, oh, okay. But Louis Riddick says Jared, right. And Louis Riddick doesn't know anything about the Titans because Louis Riddick, unlike us, doesn't have to watch the Titans every Sunday. So what we're getting out of Cam Ward, that's what I expected out of Cam Ward. Again, that's why I didn't want to use the number 1 pick on Cam Ward when the Giants were desperate to move up, because I knew your organization was not in a position from a roster standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, and from a front office view standpoint. As in, the people in the front office don't know what they're doing, so they don't know how to develop a young quarterback. So I said, go ahead, make the deal. But no. He's the next Mahomes. Got it. But even for a rookie quarterback, the expectations should be better. Like, I expect Cam Ward, when his team loses every game, to throw for more than 220 yards. By the way, he hasn't done that yet. He threw for 219 against the Colts. I expect him to be improving with his mechanics, which he has not. I expect him not to pull the Will Levis type play, which he almost did after that huge completion to Io Manor on the aborted flea flicker. And it could have been called as a fumble, and that would have been a Will Levis play if there ever was one. He has been awful in 3 of the 4 games this year, with the exception being the Denver game. And quite frankly, he's gotten worse in all 4 games so far this season. But I already know. I haven't even looked at the YouTube chat yet to see what people are saying in response to me saying, hey, Cam Ward has stunk, and I am nervous, and I am fearful for what this means for his future and what this means for the organization, and the fact that it may be another 3 years of suck, then you draft somebody else and you go through the same thing. But I'm going to assume that if I were to look over to the YouTube chat right now, there's going to be a lot of people saying, no, Jared, it's not Cam's fault. Blame Callahan. Or there's going to be a lot of people out there saying, blame the offensive line. There is nothing he could do with this offensive line, which I actually think is better than last year's offensive line. I think it's better than a lot of people are giving it credit for. And that is with J.C. Latham missing most of the season so far. Maybe they'll blame the receivers, whatever. But Cam's mechanics are not the offensive line's fault. That's a young quarterback who has bad mechanics, who had to work on his mechanics, who didn't improve his mechanics, who's out there on a Sunday. And I know a lot of people think that I personally have it out for Cam, since I didn't want them to draft Cam. But again, me not wanting them to draft Cam really didn't have anything to do with Cam. It pretty much had everything to do with the state of the organization. Mike Borgonzi, at his first press conference, talked about the need to solidify the quarterback position the way Alex Smith solidified the quarterback position in Kansas City. And I said, if you want that, which is the smart thing to want to do, go get Sam Darnold. But Sam Darnold sucks. Well, Sam Darnold had the exact same stat line in his career as Alex Smith, almost to a T. But again, everybody just wants Mahomes. So, since a lot of you think that I have it out for Cam, I would hope that since I've been right about pretty much everything so far, you would at least give me some leeway, but I know some of you don't. So let's use Blake Beddingfield as the example here. The former Titans director of college scouting. Let's use his words here when it comes to Cam. Here's what he wrote at paulkaharski.com. Quote, Ward had 2 tip passes. The number will only increase because Ward is short and drops his arm angle in the pocket without creating a passing lane first. Shorter quarterbacks that did that in the past, like Drew Brees and even Patrick Mahomes, create space from the offensive line or a lane to throw before dropping to a sidearm or 3/4 arm slot. Again, I told you, when he stands in the pocket at 6'2", and he can't see over a 6'4", 6'5" defensive tackle, which is how big they are, and he drops it sidearm, that's going to get tipped every time. Blake continues. Ward's mentality is to make plays, which is great. He puts himself in positions where he takes big hits or tries to make something happen late while being sacked, putting the ball and his body in bad positions. On the interception thrown by Ward, Blake writes, bouncing off the hands of Io Manor, dropped arm angle on a short throw, didn't take any velocity off the throw, and threw it off target to the receiver. Blake writes, Ward had multiple passes tipped. The sidearm delivery combined with the sidearm delivery combined with staring at his primary receiver allows that to happen. So that is the former Titans director of college scouting, the guy that was banging the drum for Derrick Henry to be drafted. That's him saying these mechanics are off, the arm angles are bad, the accuracy is an issue. Go watch James Foster, 440 Sports. He did a film breakdown at camp basically saying like, yeah, was not a very good game. So now that it wasn't me who said it, it was somebody in Blake Beddingfield who's got a resume to say it. I have to ask everybody out there this question. What gives you hope that this is going to get better? And instead of assessing blame and being mad about what has happened, I'm trying to talk here about what will happen. What about this situation right now gives you any hope that Cam Ward is going to get his mechanics corrected? What gives you hope that Cam Ward is going to get this figured out, that this team is going to get it figured out for him? The stats are bad. The team is bad. The mechanics are bad. The coaching is bad. How can you have any hope that this is going to improve? They're not going to fire the coach. And even if they do, for the rest of this season, you're stuck with this coaching staff. And it's not as if they've done a lot to help Cam so far, have they? And the other thing, when you tell me, this team stinks, Jared, don't put this on Cam. Well, this team isn't getting any better this year. There is no trade coming for Randy Moss. There is no waiver claim on Tony Gonzalez. So this team sucks, don't blame Cam thing is fine if you're trying to determine who you want to be angry at. But if you're looking for solutions, well, the team's not getting better anytime soon. So either Cam has to figure out how to win games with a bad team, or it's going to be more of the same. And yes, they'll have a high draft pick next year. But when they get that pick, Cam will have a year under his belt at probably, 0-17, 2-15. And he'll have a new coach and a new coaching staff and probably a new scheme and new terminology. And again, he still doesn't have solid mechanics to play the position. So I got to tell you, I am absolutely worried that this is going to be a train wreck for Cam Ward. And it's not Cam's fault, but it is reality. Right now, Cam cannot overcome this horrendous organization. It needs to be the organization that helps out Cam, but that's not happening. And I know it's spilt milk at this point, crying about something that's already happened that they can't go back and undo and everything else. Because they did pick Cam, and he is the quarterback. So it's not like you can go back and make that trade with the Giants before the draft and change the future. But think about what would have happened if they had signed Sam Darnold, which again, you all told me he sucked and he was terrible, and how dare I want Sam Darnold over the great Cam Ward. Sam Darnold, right now, if you were to make that trade with the Giants, again, I know it's crying over spilt milk, but just think about what you could have been. As of right now, Sam Darnold, according to PFF, is third amongst quarterbacks in 2025. So you could have Sam Darnold at quarterback or Daniel Jones, the other guy that I said, hey, take a flyer on him because it was Rich Gannon at the Super Bowl that told me, hey, give Daniel Jones another chance. So if you want to go cheap, go with Daniel Jones. Sam Darnold or Daniel Jones at quarterback. Abdul Carter at pick 3. Jaden Higgins or Luther Burden at 34. You wouldn't have had to trade 35, so you could have drafted Donovan Ezeraku with that pick or Nick Emanwari with that pick who was on the board. And then you'd still, if the season ended today, you would still have picks number 9 and 41 next year to go with 1 or 2, however they would do that. You're going to have the first pick. So you'd have pick 1 and 33 and 9 and 41. And you don't have any of that. You have Cam, who has a QBR of 23.4. But this fan base, expectedly, and this organization, sadly, is not smart enough to realize that this was going to be what happened to this particular rookie quarterback on this team. But instead of actually going through the likelihood that this was going to be the issue, that, hey, those mechanics, that kind of off-platform, throw it sidearm, baseball, yeah, that'll work sometimes. You can't do it every time. And by the way, Patrick Mahomes doesn't do it every time. But yeah, that's going to have to get refined in the NFL. Titans are like, fuck it. We'll get it figured out. Again, that's not how good teams do business. Kansas City didn't draft Mahomes, stick him out there on a terrible team and say, go, Patrick, go. No, they had a really good team. And he sat the bench on the really good team. But during the offseason, it's easy to just envision what you want to believe is going to happen. So everyone just said he was Mahomes. And again, I have to ask, what is the hope that he becomes Mahomes? When right now he's playing worse than Will Levis played last year. On a bad team that's not going to get better. With a coach that they don't want to fire. With a coaching staff they can't fix until the offseason. Or is it just all just, he's Mahomes, Jared, and it's just going to be that over and over again? Again, look at what the distinguished gentleman put up here. Just basically the little Cam Ward emoji thing. Oh, yeah. How's that make you feel, buddy? Boy, that answers all your questions of, oh, yeah, no, not going to ruin the quarterback with those emojis. Unbelievable. Which is crazy. So that's the first thing. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I do want to tell you about them. Before I have to get to the nugget that I feel like PK dropped today that I think's kind of interesting. We'll get to that in a second. First, though, Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. My guys, they've been in business since 1990. They are family-owned and operated with 100% satisfaction of happy you'll be or the service is free. And if a customer is not pleased with the work they'll perform, they will make it right. Learn more by visiting happyhiller.com. Care is their core value, where they believe that when they care about others, everybody wins. And they'll take care of the customer on every job, every time. And I know this because I use Hiller at my home. They also have true transparency pricing, which means that Hiller will line item every part of the job up front, so a homeowner like me or you can easily understand what they're paying for and why. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Nashville Predators, the Vanderbilt Commodores, and the Tennessee Volunteers. Hiller. Call the Happy Fish Truck today. So, number 2, Paul Kaharski dropped a nugget today that I heard, and I was, I'm going to say, not shocked, but a little surprised. This was Kaharski on my old station, the one that Paul used to incessantly trash all the time, that now he would do anything to get a show on. And this is what Paul had to say, basically saying his understanding, which to me, if it's coming from Paul, he's probably talking to either Brinker or Burke Nihill. This is what Paul said this morning on 102.5 The Game in Nashville.
I don't think Callahan's going anywhere anytime soon. I just don't think that they see a terrific upside to doing that. And I do think, I could see things getting better for a short period of time if you went with Fossil or Wilson or McCoy. But ultimately, and talking to some people about the interim thing, and I do Superhorn, the guy Superhorn on Twitter, put out a very good study of the bump you do get from interim that was in favor of interim. But I think there's a feeling.
Well, who cares about the bump? It's not about that.
Yeah, it's not.
Joe, shut up. Because I think what Paul was about to say is but there's a feeling that they're not going to get some big bump or whatever if they were to go the interim coach route. So PK is saying that he doesn't think Brian Callahan's getting fired anytime soon. And I just wish Joe would have shut the fuck up and let Paul give us a sense of what he was being told. But here's what I take away from that little snippet. One, and I think that he's talking to either Berg Nihil or Chad Brinker. I don't know that. I just think that. One, they're not firing Callahan anytime soon. Two, they actually think it might hurt Cam Ward if they did fire Callahan, which I don't see how it could hurt. And three, they don't think they'll get anything out of having an interim coach. And I call bullshit on that. Now, I'm not calling bullshit on Paul's reporting. I'm calling bullshit on the idea that the Titans think they're better off with Callahan as the coach than they are without Callahan and somebody else coaching the team. They know he can't coach. They know Mike McCoy, who has a track record of coaching in the NFL. They know Mike McCoy would be a better coach. They know Bones Fossil would be a better coach. I don't buy any of that. So I think it's bullshit. Callahan is a total boob, and everybody with eyes knows it. A lot of people are saying, well, he wasn't having these same problems last year. Yes, he was. We all made the story about Will Levis and Rand Carthon. But there was classic mismanagement of the coaching staff with Colt Anderson last year. You don't remember that? Do you remember the Packer game when he sent out the punt team on 4th and 1? Then the fans booed, so he called timeout. He sent the offense back out there. I remember that. Do you remember they did not know the rules for the onside free kick attempt week 4 at Miami on Monday Night Football? I remember that. So a lot of the same snafus Callahan has had this year, he had last year. But again, the story was about Levis, or the story was about Rand, or the story was about Amy, and not so much about Callahan. That's why I keep saying, hey, if you fire Callahan, great, but it doesn't solve all the problems. But at the same time, I just don't know how the Titans could look at this and think, you know what, we're still better off with Callahan as the coach. He has no answers. If he had answers, he would have solved some of those problems by now. And Mike Borgonzi comes from Andy Reid. And I have to wonder if Mike Borgonzi spent every day for the last 10 years watching Andy Reid coach a football team at practice, now watches Callahan and thinks, yep, that's some good coaching, boys. And I have to assume the answer is no. Now, again, when it comes to Borgonzi, I don't know where he is as far as the food chain is concerned in terms of decision-making on the coach. I heard today, again, I heard PK and Joe Rexroad saying that Borgonzi picks the players, and Brinker said that. That's news to me. I guess I must have missed that. But I think Paul's reporting is legit. I think that they're not planning on firing Brian Callahan anytime soon. And I saw Dan Graziano put something out there today that he thinks maybe they'll give Callahan the whole season. Holy shit. I think there are 3 reasons why that would happen, or why the Titans, I'll say this. I think there are 3 reasons that the Titans are giving indications that they are not going to fire Callahan. Number 1, I think Burke and Brinker know if they fire Callahan, there are still 13 more games left, and 13 more ass kickings, barring a major miracle, it's going to be the same. Right now, Callahan is taking 95% of the heat. If Callahan gets fired tomorrow, who's going to take the heat for the 13 remaining ass kickings? It's not going to be Mike McCoy. It's not going to be Bones Fossil. It's going to be Chad Brinker. So I think the way that Brinker and Burke look at this, or Brinker or Burke looks at this, is it's in our best interest to let Callahan continue to coach and to let Callahan catch all the flack. Number two, if they fire Callahan, and I got this idea when I was listening to Albert Breer talk about them firing Callahan earlier in the week. If they fire Callahan, maybe they fear it will look dysfunctional. That, again, we're making another massive change after we've made 5 massive changes every year in a row, it feels like. And so while I guess they don't think it looks dysfunctional to fire a winning general manager when you're in first place, they think, well, firing a 3-18 coach would look really bad, so let's not do it. You know, Floyd used to tell me about what he called the Sally rule, which was whatever Sally is thinking about doing, do the opposite. And I think that we may need to dub that the Amy rule. So whatever Amy's natural inclination is, do the opposite. Oh, you want to promote Chad Brinker to do the opposite. You want to fire the general manager on the Tuesday of the Jacksonville game while you're 7-5 in first place? Do the opposite. But that's just me. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is maybe they just don't want to pay Mike McCoy or Bones Fossil a raise when they have to fire Callahan. And I know that's really cheap because you're probably talking about a couple $100 extra grand, which is what they're going to have to end up spending in order to sign a kicker when they cut Joey Sly. But maybe they just don't want to pay. Again, they're paying John Robinson. They're paying Rand Carthon. They'd have to pay Callahan once they fire him, and then they'd have to give a raise to whomever becomes the interim head coach. And then they'd have to go hire somebody else and pay that person. Now, I think it is a grave miscalculation on their part, thinking that it is not a big deal to keep Callahan around because their indication is only going to make people more mad at them. And I think they are putting a bullseye on themselves if they, and I'm talking about a bullseye for fan heat, but I think they're putting a bullseye on themselves talking about Brinker and the front office and ownership if they don't fire Callahan. But this wouldn't be the first time that I've thought that the Titans front office was making a massive miscalculation. And I, by the way, am convinced, and I mean convinced, that Chad Brinker is next for the fans. I don't know what the deal with Chad Brinker and Amy is and why Amy believes in him so much. And I've talked about Brinker and I've talked about his resume and I've asked what the fuck does he do? And I get all of that. But when it comes to angst from the fans, Callahan is person non grata number 1 and Brinker's number 2. And I'm going to say this, and this is my experience. Again, I don't have some huge issue with Brinker. I mean, I wouldn't have hired him. And I don't really believe a lot of the things that he's promised that haven't come true about Rand, about Callahan, about everything else. But I do kind of feel like the fans have no time for Chad Brinker anymore. I'm a little surprised by that, to be honest. I think the fans like Mike Borgonzi. And I don't know how you know what Brinker did versus what Borgonzi did, but anytime there's something somebody likes, like Alec Iomanor, it's like Mike Borgonzi. And anytime it's something bad that's not Brian Callahan related, it's like Brinker. What's he do? He doesn't know. And so on and so forth. Speaking of Paul, and then we will get into some of your reaction here. Boy, Paul got into it with the Titans today. Holy shit. Did you see this? So I guess PK got a text from a friend of his who is a season ticket holder. And I guess with season ticket holders going into the new stadium, I guess there's a kind of a text feature where the team will text you and you can text back. And I actually think I was, when we did our tickets at the new stadium, that I do remember texting with them because we were asking about rows and the 2 tickets that we were going to get had already been taken after we were going to get them. And so then they put us. So I think I did text a little bit with them. So I guess, according to PK's story, now all PK showed was the text that the Titans rep sent, which I'm going to assume that Paul is being somewhat honest in this. But apparently, a Titans ticket rep told a potential customer that the fan base is very happy with the direction of the team. Paul writes, the message came in response to the potential customer's complaints about the 2024 firing of Mike Vrabel, forcing the team further into a rebuild. You show loyalty and you'll get loyalty, he wrote, continuing, I'm just a messenger. So apparently, what the ticket representative sent back said, quote, we are 75% sold out of the new stadium. We just converted all of our current members over. So our fan base is very happy, exclamation point. Then said reply stop to opt out of these texts. Paul tweeted out that it was not an AI bot, as many people thought. An AI bot would not say that. An AI bot, you say to an AI bot, hey, I just ate 7 Snickers bars and an ice cream sundae. Am I doing well? And the AI bot will tell you, yeah, you're doing great. Way to go. But that, again, that's not how I would message things if I was the Titans. And the Titans have apologized, saying that they missed the mark in a big way. These comments have been addressed and we will do better. So I want to put that to the side for a second. What, again, a ticket rep sent in a text message that should not have been sent. And also, I doubt the 75% of the stadium stuff. The Titans have told us how great the sales are going for 3 years. When it comes to really anything stadium related, I think it's kind of bullshit. But that I do think is horseshit. I remember a couple years ago, they were saying things that just didn't make any sense. I asked them. I remember I asked them. I was like, so when you get this new stadium, you're going to have PSLs. And they were like, well, Jared, we haven't really thought about that yet. I'm like, oh, okay. I was doing the show with Caroline at the time. I said, Caroline, you believe that? She was like, nope. This is where I feel like, so put that to the side for a second. This is where I feel like Paul took it a little too far. He sent out a tweet saying, quote, if you have an appointment at Titan's house, you should cancel immediately. You should stop showing up to games. If you were waiting for one last thing, this should be it. The Titans think you are very happy, Paul wrote. I gotta say, that feels kind of personal to me. The fact that he's telling fans hey, you should cancel tickets at the new stadium. I'll say this. Do whatever you want. If you want tickets to the new stadium, get tickets to the new stadium. If you don't want tickets to the new stadium, don't get tickets to the new stadium. The Titans are asking for an exorbitant amount of money for tickets in the new stadium. I think that's kind of bullshit. That's just my opinion. I think PSLs in general are bullshit. But at the end of the day, again, it's a business. They set prices. You decide if you want to buy them. When Paul says, you should cancel your appointments to buy tickets, you shouldn't go to games, you shouldn't, I have to ask, why are you so angry about that? Again, it feels kind of personal. And Paul is the one who always claims he's not a fan. He's an objective journalist. I'm a fan. I'm not going to the games because it's a pain in the ass to go to the games. And when I go to the games, it's such a pain in the ass to get there, get back, and the team sucks. So fuck it. I'm not going. But again, that's my personal choice. I'm not telling you what to do. This reminds me of something that happened in the early 2000s. In, I want to say, I think it was Detroit. So Rexroad might know more about this than I would. But Matt Millen was the team president, and he stunk. And if you remember, before the last couple of years, Detroit had just been horrid. And so some radio station, I believe, I want to make sure I get this right, they staged a walkout in the middle of the last game of the season in which they encouraged fans to wear orange, which were Bengals colors because they were playing the Bengals, and that they would all walk out at like 3 minutes to go in the third quarter or something, and there was going to be this massive walkout. Well, that's like a publicity stunt, and again, that's a talk radio thing where fans are just sitting there talking shit. PK votes on the Hall of Fame. He even texted me today about how he was some great journalist. And I'm like, you're really getting that worked up and telling the fans, don't spend another penny with this organization because one guy got a text message saying that the fan base was happy with the team, which is not true, by the way. And I don't know if the other stuff in that was true. And the Titans have admitted they shouldn't have sent that text. But it just felt a little over the top. It felt a little disingenuous. So I'm trying to figure out, like, wait a minute, what? And again, when it comes to me, you do whatever you want. You want to put a paper bag over your head at the game? Do whatever you want. Within reason. But the idea of telling other people, hey, don't go to the game. Really? Like, that's where we're at now? Because one ticket rep sent a text message to one ticket holder? I mean, if you don't like it, don't go. But I don't think it's like some sort of undercover operation in which we've got to dive in deep about what is going on with the text messages the Titans are sending out. Let me just say this. When it comes to the business side of the Titans, I hear stuff. There are far juicier things than that text message. But again, like if you're going to go there, you've got to do the research. You've got to have the proof. You've got to have and I don't ever see Paul do that. So again, I saw the whole thing unfold on Twitter. I thought it was a very ill-informed text to send, but I felt like Paul's reaction was a little over the top, like maybe even performative for somebody who, again, claims to have no emotional attachment one way or another. He's telling fans, don't go to the games. So, again, make of that what you will. And I don't think it's really that big of a deal. I think it's a bad look for the organization, but I don't think it's the end of the organization. So, and again, hey, he can tell people to do whatever they want, just like I can tell people, hey, you should want them to trade for Sam Darnold. So it's a free country, whatever. I want to get a Vanderbilt topic in today ahead of their game Saturday. So I watched Kalen DeBoer's press conference, the head coach at Alabama, because last year he did his entire pre-Vanderbilt press conference talking about their win against Georgia and not the Vanderbilt game. Somebody said he did not say a single thing about Vanderbilt. So I went back and watched the press conference. This was like the Tuesday after Vanderbilt beat Alabama. And I watched the whole 17, 18-minute press conference a week after the fact. And I was amazed. He did not mention Vanderbilt one time. The word Vanderbilt or Vandy or anything like that did not come out of his mouth one time. And so when Paul Feinbaum's going on and on about how this would have never happened if Nick Saban was the coach, Nick Saban would have never let that. I agree. And overlooking an opponent is a no-no for Coach Nick Saban. And so I watched Kalen DeBoer's press conference this week ahead of the Vanderbilt game because I wanted to see after they beat Georgia how much talking about Vanderbilt he's going to do. And to his credit, Kalen DeBoer did bring up Vanderbilt in his opening statement. Talked about getting ready for a good team who is 5-0 and Clark Lee's a good coach and blah, blah, blah. And then the first question Kalen DeBoer was asked about was last season and how they overlooked Vanderbilt. His answer, take a look.
There's a perception that the win over Georgia last year created some overconfidence and it resulted in the team not taking Vanderbilt seriously enough just 7 days later. Is that fair? And if not, how do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue against that. You got to handle success, and you got to come back every single week in this league. And I've talked to, every coach I talk to at midfield, that's what the conversation's about is, here you go again. And you got to reload mentally, physically, emotionally to during the week, get prepared at the highest level you possibly can, and go play ball. Physically, it's going to be a battle, and mentally, you got to be ready to respond. And so, we didn't handle success, however you want to put it, last year well. You can't argue that. I also think that they did a nice job executing in critical times and made plays. And so, no different this week, right? We and our success that we had on Saturday, none of it matters. None of it carries over. The third down stops, the third down execution on offense, it doesn't matter. Points don't carry over. Every game's its own game. There's new matchups that are going to be presented in this game that were different than last week. And so just like I talk about every play being its own play, this game is its own game.
Oh, boy. That was a minute 30 in which Kalen DeBoer basically said, yeah, we overlooked him. And I heard that and I rolled my eyes and I thought, oh my God, Nick Saban would have never said that. If I am Clark Lee, I am running that right there on a loop in the facility over and over and over again. Again, Kalen DeBoer just says, yeah, we overlooked him. He didn't say it, but he said it. Nick Saban would have never said that. Nick Saban would have gone crazy. He would have said, we lost the game because they outplayed us and outcoached us in every facet. And then Saban would have had the stats to prove it. He would have said, they held the ball for X amount of time. We did that. Like Saban would have been ready to go. He would have known that it was the first question. He would have known it was coming. He would have just ripped somebody's head off. And Saban would have said something along the lines, and if we don't play well enough in the game this Saturday, they're going to beat us because they're a damn good team. They were a damn good team last year, and they're a damn good team this year. And then he probably would have gone on one of his infamous Nick Saban rants, which, by the way, as much as I do like Nick Saban on College Game Day, I miss the Nick Saban rants. But instead, Kalen DeBoer gets up there and basically admits, yeah, we overlooked Vanderbilt last year. Here's why I think this is a problem. Because I think they may be overlooking Vanderbilt again. When you chalk up a loss to overlooking a team, and you say, well, Clark's a good coach and they're 5-0, you're kind of saying the same generic shit that everybody says and that they think about Vanderbilt when they're about to play a team that they're favored to beat by 10.5 points. That's what happens when you get ready to play Eastern Lafayette State Tech. The head coach gets up there and says, well, I'll tell you, they've had a real good season so far, and Coach Cumbie, he's got them ready to play ball. Instead of, they whooped our ass last year, which is exactly what Nick Saban would have said. Instead of, we overlooked them, Saban would have said, they beat our ass. And he would want every one of those Alabama players to know they beat our ass fair and square. And he would want every one of those Vanderbilt players to think Nick Saban respects the shit out of us because we beat his ass last year. Not, they beat us because they overlooked us. Kalen DeBoer should have had every positive stat about Vanderbilt ready to go. If I was Kalen DeBoer, the way I would have talked about Vanderbilt, the way I would have talked about preparing for the game is not the way he did. Again, he was like, hey, every game is a different game, and what happened last Saturday doesn't matter for this Saturday. No. I'd have made you think that we were getting ready to play Ohio State. And this is where it hit me as to why this isn't going to work out between Alabama and Kalen DeBoer. Kalen DeBoer is a good coach. He is 116-17 as a college head coach. That means that when he goes to coach a game, he wins 87% of the time. That includes NAIA, Fresno State, Washington, where he went to the national championship game, and Alabama. He just beat Georgia for the second time in 2 tries. He is not a bum. But it's not going to work out there. And when it doesn't work out there, everybody's going to blame the Alabama fan base for saying that Nick Saban spoiled them and their expectations are too high. But I think the reason it's not going to work out is because Kalen DeBoer, who's not an SEC guy, who comes from Washington, is learning, as the SEC likes to say, it just means more. At Washington, maybe you can say something like that and just say, oh yeah, we can't overlook anybody and they're a good team and it'll be fine. But in the SEC, every single thing that comes out of your mouth, out of your coach's show, out of your Twitter account, your outfit choice, it matters. Lane Kiffin had highlighted on Twitter something that Brian Kelly said on his coach's show. It matters. It means more. And I don't know if Kalen DeBoer, who's not an SEC guy, I don't know if he gets that yet. I don't know if Brian Kelly gets that at LSU. Lane Kiffin gets it. Kirby Smart gets it. Josh Heupel gets it. I don't think Kalen DeBoer gets it. And let me say this. I haven't made a prediction yet. I guess right now, and I'll make the prediction on Friday, but gut, I probably will pick Alabama. But I do think Kalen DeBoer is done if they lose this game. Because even though Vanderbilt isn't the Vanderbilt of old, nobody considers Vanderbilt a serious threat to the likes of Alabama. And that's exactly how their fans in Tuscaloosa will take it if they lose the game again. Is we lost to Vandy. And I know Vanderbilt's ranked number 16. I know they're 5-0. I know they've got a Heisman candidate at quarterback. I think Vanderbilt's good. I'm the one who stayed up to watch them kick the shit out of Virginia Tech. But I'm not an Alabama fan. Alabama fans think it's their God-given right to beat Vanderbilt. And you're not going to dissuade them by saying, yeah, last year we overlooked them, but this year we got to be prepared. Again, Kalen DeBoer needs everybody in that state to think Vanderbilt is a legitimate threat. And I don't think he did that with his press conference. Again, Nick Saban would have never, ever, ever overlooked Vanderbilt the way Kalen DeBoer overlooked them last year after they beat Georgia. So this may be completely moot. But at the same time, if Alabama had lost to Vandy and they were going to play Vandy almost with the exact same circumstance as last year, exciting, unexpected win for Bama against Georgia. Now you're playing Vanderbilt. You're asked, hey, did you overlook them? Have you thought about it in this game? Saban would have gone nuts. And he would have gone nuts at the reporter. He would have made the story about himself, but he would have made sure that that soundbite got out there, that Nick Saban respects Vanderbilt, and that all you fans out here in Tuscaloosa, you better respect Vanderbilt too. And all you players in our locker room, you better respect Vanderbilt too. And everybody in Nashville, in that locker room at the McGugin Center, you've got my respect. Saban would have done that. And I don't think Kalen DeBoer did. Again, when asked, did you overlook him? He didn't say no. It just means more in the SEC. And I don't know if the guy from Washington totally gets that. By the way, I have said that I have an anti-Vanderbilt take every day leading up to the Alabama game, trying to get some bulletin board material there for Vanderbilt. Maybe that'll work. The Kalen DeBoer's basically saying, yeah, we overlooked them. But today's anti-Vanderbilt take bulletin board take of the day comes via Joel Klatt, the paid mouthpiece of the Big Ten via Fox, the color analyst for Big Noon Kickoff or for the Big Noon Saturday game. Joel has a podcast called the Joel Klatt Show. And today he had his October bracket. So it's kind of like Joe Lunardi's bracketology. Joel Klatt's October college football playoff bracket prediction. And I actually was wondering, who does Joel Klatt have in the playoff? Not because I give a rat's ass who Joel Klatt has in the playoff, but because I want to see, hey, are we taking Vanderbilt seriously or not? He does not. Joel Klatt has Texas, who lost to Ohio State in there. Actually has them fourth. Thinks they'll win the SEC. Joel Klatt has Texas A&M in his bracket. Ole Miss in his bracket. Can't knock those. 1 loss Bama, 1 loss Georgia, 2 loss Notre Dame. All in. No Vanderbilt. No thought of Vanderbilt. And this is the thing again. Put this on the bulletin board over there. They still don't take you seriously, Diego. So I'm going to tell you right now, when it comes to Vanderbilt on Saturday, they still don't respect you. They will say, all you'll hear on game day, and you'll hear it from, is, this isn't the same Vanderbilt. But then when Joel Klatt starts ranking teams, he's got all these SEC teams in there and no Vanderbilt. Because even though LSU can't score, he still expects LSU to beat Vanderbilt. Even though Texas, Arch Manning, looks to be very disappointing so far, he still thinks they'll beat Vanderbilt. A&M beat Notre Dame, and so now everybody's like, oh, A&M, they might be good. But they don't do that with Vanderbilt. So I'm just going to tell you right now, Vanderbilt, they will hear, this is not your grandfather's Vanderbilt. They'll hear that over and over again. But people still look at it like, yeah, at the end of the day, it's Vandy. So go ahead and put that up there on the bulletin board. We will get to some of your thoughts, and we'll include the Vanderbilt game in all of this. But I am very, very excited to see the Vanderbilt game on Saturday. I thought I was going to go. Now I'm doing Mad Dog Sports Radio on Saturday morning, and so I don't think it'll make sense. I'll probably go live after the Vandy, Alabama game. Who knows? So I want to get to this. This actually popped up. Finally, a tweet came in from somebody named Jared Smith. And I would say whoever the fuck that is. But I looked at the guy's Twitter, and he is clearly from New England, and his Twitter bio says, fire Don Sweeney, the general manager of the Bruins. And so Jared Smith says on Twitter, quote, I wonder if at Jared Stillman still thinks Mike Vrabel stinks as a coach. 3-18 since he was fired. That, of course, in reference to the fact that right now Brian Callahan is the new odds-on favorite to be the first head coach fired this season. And guess what? There's going to be a lot of that. There's going to be a lot of talk about how stupid the Titans are for firing Mike Vrabel and hiring this bozo, and this bozo being so bad. And I am not discrediting the bozo part of that. But I'd like to address the tweet. Jared, I never said that Mike Vrabel stinks. I, in fact, have said over and over and over that Mike Vrabel is a good coach. I have said that repeatedly. I've said it on Boston radio multiple times. I've said it on Sirius XM. I said it on my local show. I've said it to Vrabel. I've said he's a good coach. I don't think he's as good as everybody's making him out to be. Secondly, I think it is obvious and really doesn't even need to be said that Brian Callahan is a worse coach than Mike Vrabel. No argument from me. But this whole thing goes back to what bothers me about the Vrabel discussion and what's going to bother me going forward as Brian Callahan continues to lose. And that is some idea that Mike Vrabel was the Jimmy Johnson of the Tennessee Titans, and that the Tennessee Titans let their own stupidity and ego get in their way of firing a 2-time Super Bowl winning coach, when Mike Vrabel wasn't that. He went to one AFC championship game. Jeff Fisher couldn't coach for shit, and he went to 2. They did not win back-to-back Super Bowls. They did not trade Herschel Walker for Emmitt Smith in a Hall of Picks. No, Mike Vrabel lost a lot of games too. After John Robinson was fired, Mike Vrabel was 6-17 as the Tennessee Titans coach. 6-17. That's awful. In fact, it's not as if Mike Vrabel is 4-0 right now in New England. They're 2-2 with wins over the Dolphins, who stink, and the Panthers. Wow. Again, if you want to say Vrabel is better than Callahan, you're going to get zero argument from me. But if you're trying to sell me that the Titans' fortunes as an organization completely did a 180 because they made the mistake of letting the great Mike Vrabel go, well, go beat Buffalo on Sunday, and then maybe you can talk. Okay, it's time for the way that we start every single week of the football season with our Thursday night sermon. Unfortunately, I will not be on the air tomorrow because Yom Kippur is coming today at sundown, and it's the holiest Jewish day of the year, so no show tomorrow, which means the Thursday night sermon gets pushed just one day up. And of course, we start with a headline I saw today at ESPN. Stephen A. Smith predicts when Shedeur Sanders might start for the Browns. I didn't click that video. The news is the Browns are benching Joe Flacco in favor of third-round pick Dylan Gabriel. And I'm going to ask, am I wrong for what I'm about to say? I don't care about the Cleveland Browns or the Cleveland Browns quarterback situation. Not one iota. Shedeur Sanders was popular during the draft and the preseason when we didn't have real football to watch, just like the WNBA got viewers during the summer. Did you know that the WNBA playoffs are going on right now? Me neither. Because the weekly soap opera of the NFL has enough juice that we don't need the Shedeur circus like we did during the doleful preseason. Sorry, ESPN. I don't care when Shedeur Sanders plays. I don't care. The drama of the Browns, and we've got real football to watch. Can I get an amen? Number 2, how about the Ravens? The Ravens are 1-3, and they're forced to turn it over to Cooper Rush because of the Lamar Jackson injury. I feel bad for the Ravens. Their schedule was super front-loaded. But every year there's a team we expect to be good, and then poof, all of a sudden, they're not. Last year, it was San Francisco. And I'm not writing the Ravens dead yet because Lamar Jackson is still Lamar Jackson. But with Lamar Jackson injured and sitting at 1-3, this is a team of Derrick Henry, no defense, and that's it. And I would like to think that I'm an expert on what it looks like when you've got a team of Derrick Henry and nobody else. It's not pretty. Good luck to the Ravens, who I actually think might need it. Can I get an amen? Speaking of the Ravens, they currently have the 31st ranked defense in the NFL. When's the last time John Harbaugh, when's the last time John Harbaugh had a defense that crappy? 31st in the NFL. The Dolphins, meanwhile, led by Anthony Weaver, 26th. The Titans, led by Denard Wilson, one spot better at 25. If you'll remember 2 years ago, everybody wanted to be the Ravens on defense. Mike McDonald got the Seattle job, and the 3 members of the defensive coaching staff, Weaver, Wilson, and Zach Orr, who is the Ravens defensive coordinator, all got coordinator gigs. And all 3 stink. Why? Because the lesson should be that coordinating a defense is really, really hard to do. It's why Sean McVay hires Wade Phillips and Raheem Morris. It's why the Eagles realized we need to get Vic Fangio. Right now, the top defense in the league belongs to an old pawpaw, Jim Schwartz in Cleveland. You know, Jim Schwartz coordinated his first defense in 2001, 24 years ago. And that first year, they ranked 25th. It's hard to coordinate defenses in the NFL. Everybody wants the next great rookie coach. But again, all those Raven defensive coordinators stink. Can I get an amen? What's Arthur Smith have to do to get some love in Pittsburgh? I was watching the NFL Network broadcast Sunday morning between Minnesota and Pittsburgh, and all it was talk about how great Kevin O'Connell was. The Kevin O'Connell who hasn't done shit with anybody except for Sam Darnold. The Steelers are 3-1. That's with a new left tackle, with a new receiving core, and with a quarterback that showed up on the eve of training camp. And yes, they're 29th in the league in total offense, which is bad. But they are 16th in points, which means they're A, scoring in the red zone, and B, not turning the ball over. Last time I checked, that's pretty important. I know it didn't go well for Arthur in Atlanta, but it hasn't gone well for a lot of people in Atlanta. And remember, Arthur Smith made Ryan Tannehill $100 million. But Kevin O'Connell's the great one. And finally, Bears coach Ben Johnson got his welcome to the NFL moment on Sunday when he had an awkward exchange with a CBS sideline reporter. Johnson has apologized, and I will say Aditi Kinkabwale, the sideline reporter, could have done a better job. But I have to ask a question with all these prospective coaches. Do these guys have any idea what the job of head coach is anymore? Ben Johnson was a can't-miss coaching prospect for the last 2 years, and I guess he never once realized how to do one of these useless sideline interviews. And too often, guys get head coaching jobs, and they look so unprepared for the job as if they didn't know interacting with the media on a daily basis is part of the gig. Sometimes guys get these jobs and they don't just look unprepared for a head coaching job, they look unprepared for any job. Do you remember Josh McDaniels in Denver? Do any of these guys know there's more to being a head coach than calling the plays, putting the play sheet over your mouth and saying, Spider Y2X banana? And sometimes I don't think some of these guys know what it takes to be a head coach or practice any of the things that it takes to be a head coach. Every other coach around the league gets asked stupid bullshit too. And apparently Ben Johnson is the only one who doesn't know how to answer the questions. Can I get an amen? And that's our Thursday night sermon. The Thursday night sermon usually ends the Thursday show, but because we are not having a Thursday show, we'll get to some of your reaction here so far on the YouTube chat if you want to weigh in. And I've starred some of your things. So Kelsey says, when it comes to Cam Ward, nothing changes until management and coaches change. Coaches will change. When? I can't tell you. Management? I mean, I got to tell you, my gut tells me, and my gut told me, and then reporting told me that Rand Carthon was going to get the boot at the end of last year. I don't think Chad Brinker's getting fired after this year. I think it is the Chad Brinker show. The distinguished gentleman said, it's a rebuild. We all knew this was going to be painful. Agreed. Did you know it was going to be this bad, though? I always wonder this. Again, Brinker and Borgonzi told everybody to be patient. I saw somebody put out there the video of when Big Joe Dubin asked them about the Super Bowl at the beginning of the year and how they kind of chuckled, and it was like, oh, they knew this team was going to suck. Yeah, they knew this team was going to be bad. Again, I don't think they thought they'd be 0-4 and worse than they were last year. And rebuilds are painful. Agreed. But that's even if there's something that comes to the other side of this. If you don't fix Cam Ward's mechanics, you don't fix his footwork. If you don't put a better team around him, and I don't know how you're going to put a better team around him, if you don't do any of that, it doesn't matter. Juan says Xavier Restrepo has separation speed. Cam has chemistry with Restrepo. We're losing. Why not take another risk? Boy, I've seen Titans Twitter go crazy about when is Restrepo going to get in there? Can I answer this question for you? Restrepo will get in there when he learns how to run. Xavier Restrepo is not an NFL player. If he was an NFL player, he'd be on an active roster. Not just your active roster, any active roster. He would have gone in the draft. There would have been a team after training camp that put in a claim on him. They had joint practices with Atlanta and Tampa Bay. Nobody wants him. And you want to know why nobody wants him? Because he's not an NFL player. That's just what I believe is this fan bullshit that came out when they signed him, which was, he and Cam, that's going to be a Disney movie, best friends forever. He can't run. He's not good. He's not big. You got a lot of problems. Xavier Restrepo is not fixing them. And then finally, I had to get the distinguished gentleman in here again. When he said Fool's Gold Darnold has a better roster, all I ask is that you keep the same energy when he flops in a couple of weeks. We all know how this ends. Let's see. As of right now, Sam Darnold's lighting it up. Lit it up. Lit it up on Thursday Night Football last week. Let's see how Cam does against the same team. Jude says, Jared, you spent weeks criticizing Brinker's promotion. I did. But at the same time, I think he's going to keep his job. And then finally, Josh said, I so hope Vanderbilt wins. This to me is the ultimate game to tell everyone that Vanderbilt is for real. I agree. And we shall see that this coming Saturday if they win. If not, then, well, it's probably same old Vanderbilt for me. That's it for us. We're going to do it today. Stillman & Company. We're back Friday live on YouTube at 2 o'clock. And, of course, wherever you get your podcast, no show tomorrow because of Yom Kippur. The plan is to have a post-game live after Vanderbilt, Alabama. And be sure to catch me on Saturday morning on Sirius XM, Mad Dog Sports Radio. That's channel 82 from 7 to 11 a.m. Central Time. Again, like and subscribe. Get the subscriptions. Keep them coming. You know, we've already passed the old radio station. Let's get them up there with the other radio station. Like and subscribe at Stillman & Co. on YouTube, presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. My guys, we'll see you all Friday at 2 o'clock.